Some legends don't die. They just change their shape and weight. Part 1. The Hollow That Screams. Setting the tone. Garrett Cole had seen his share of death. Hellhounds, lake hags, barbed wire wraiths. Whatever wore teeth in the night, he'd dance with it. Most left scars. Some left worse. But he'd never heard of a town that erased itself. Until Bellweather Hollow. The call came from a deputy 2 towns over. Said a stretch of land had gone quiet. No phone signals. No power. No mail. Last thing anyone remembered was a woman calling 911 saying something about the red ones waking up. Then static. The town was gone. No news. No chatting. Like it had never existed. Day 1 arrival. Garrett's tires crunched gravel as he passed the crooked sign that read, "Welcome to Bellwether Hollow. EST 1811, stay a while." A polite lie. The sign was rotted through, shot with bullet holes. Behind it, the tree line leaned inward like it had secrets. His first clue something was wrong? The silence. No wind. No insects. Just a thick, humming quiet that pressed against the skull. The second clue? The smell. Sweet rot. Old copper. Like meat in a broken freezer. And the third? The children's shoes, pairs of them, arranged neatly on the side of the road in a spiral. The town that wasn't. Bellwether Hollow sat low in a bowl of hills. The town square was still there. Gas station, church, diner, all the bones of a place. But everything was wrong. The church door was nailed shut with black thorns. The diner had no windows, just warped plywood, bolted and sealed. And the gas station had a sign that said, "No fuel. No God. No escape." Garrett parked by the sheriff's office. The front door was ajar, but what caught his eye was the circle drawn in blood on the floor. In the center sat a pile of teeth, small, yellowed, still damp. Children's teeth. The tapes. Inside the sheriff's office was a locker room full of static humming police radios and an old answering machine that blinked, 14, in red. Garrett pressed play. Most were gibberish, breathing, sobbing, screeching. Then one voice, calm and dry. "They come at dusk. They don't knock. They don't speak. But they want your mouth. They want your words. You speak, they enter. You scream, they stay." Another voice, thick with panic. "We tried not to look at them. We tried." The last message was a whisper. "The Bellwether's bleeding. And we bled with it. Who's still here?" Garrett found the first survivor just before dusk. A boy, maybe 9, hiding beneath the floorboards of the church, face painted in ash. He wouldn't speak, just stared, wide-eyed, pointing to the rafters. When Garrett looked up, he saw carvings, not words, but mouths. Hundreds of them, etched into the wood, grinning down. The boy finally whispered, "They hear with those now. If you talk too loud, they learn you." Garrett asked him what they were. The boy started to cry. Then he bled from his nose. Then his mouth opened wider than it should. And he began to repeat Garrett's question back to him. Same tone, same words. "What are they, Garrett? What are they, Garrett? What are they, Garrett?" He ran. Garrett didn't follow. The red ones? As night fell, the air changed. It hummed. Not sound. Not electricity. A pressure. Like something ancient was crawling out from under the soil to breathe again. Garrett stayed in the church, salt lines drawn, eyes scanning the windows. But nothing moved. Not until 3:33 a.m. That's when the bells started ringing. No church bell. Not even real sound. Just a ringing in his skull, like tinnitus made by something alive. And outside, at the edge of the woods, the trees began to glow. Red. And something walked between them. Thin. Crooked. Like shadows missing parts. And when they moved, the mouths in the church ceiling grinned wider. The scream. Garrett made it through the night by not breathing too loud. Not praying. Not cursing. Just silence. And when the sun rose, he found a row of severed tongues nailed to the diner door. Underneath, someone had scrawled, "Their God wants voices." He left the town square. Went deeper. Found an old farmhouse, half-eaten by vines and rot. Inside, a woman. Naked, blindfolded, lips sewn shut. But alive. She pressed a note into his hand. Written in old ink, shaky script. "Don't say a word. They hear through the hollow. They wear our voices like coats. They come when the bellwether bleeds. And it's bleeding again. Please help me kill it." Part 2. The bellwether bleeds. No voice, no chains. She had no name. Not anymore. When Garrett asked, she pressed her finger to her lips and shook her head, not just in silence, but fear. Her mouth had been stitched with something that looked like vine fiber, though it pulsed faintly, like muscle. She moved through the house barefoot, half feral, with a grace that came from years of hiding. Every floorboard she avoided. Every shadow she watched. Garrett couldn't shake the feeling she wasn't just avoiding sound. She was avoiding being heard. She showed him the cellar. The door was marked with a handprint in blood, and beneath it, scrawled into the wood, "Don't feed the roots." Downstairs was a well. Not a water well, no pulley, no bucket. Just a black, yawning hole dug straight through the stone. Around it were old relics, crosses, deer skulls, bones wrapped in cloth, pages nailed to the walls with long iron nails. The woman pointed to the rim of the well and handed him the candle. When Garrett lit it, he saw the truth. The sides of the well were lined with teeth. Human. Animal. Even some too large to be eaten. The hollow hadn't always been empty. Something had been fed. Roots that pulse. That night, Garrett didn't sleep. He watched the trees bend toward the farmhouse. Not from wind. Towards something. And the sky didn't darken like it should have. It turned red, the same way bone marrow sometimes looks under a microscope. And through the windows he saw them. Red ones. They didn't walk, they staggered like they were drowning in gravity. No eyes. Just skin pulled tight across long skulls. And mouths, dozens of them, scattered across their torsos, knees, palms, spines. Each one whispering in voices Garrett recognized. His own. The sheriff. The boy. The woman beside him. Every voice they'd ever stolen, echoing like memories being digested. He whispered to the woman, "Where did they come from?" She pointed to the well. The first bleeding. They waited until morning. The red ones never entered the house. But they never left the tree lean either. just watched. The woman pulled a hidden journal from the floorboards beneath her bed. Written in neat cursive, every page marked with the same sign, an eye with antlers curling out from it. She pointed to a passage and tapped it twice. The Bellwether was once a boy. They say he had a voice like silver, could sing things into being. The town made him a priest, then a prophet, then a sacrifice. They cut his throat to feed the hollow. It didn't silence him. It made him louder. He sings through the roots now. When the hollow hears enough words, he wakes. Garrett stared at the page, then at the stitched skin over the woman's mouth. She nodded, and for the first time, he understood. The silence wasn't superstition. It was survival. Blood in the earth. Garrett ventured outside that day. The red ones were gone, but the soil was wet, too wet. He crouched, touched it. Blood. Not fresh. Not just animal. The ground bled like something beneath it had been wounded. He looked toward the hills that circled Bellweather Hollow. They were moving, almost imperceptibly, like something inside them was breathing. And there, on the crest of one hill, stood a wooden effigy. A goat's skull, nailed to a post, surrounded by rings of salt and bone. And carved into the post, tongues taken, will not be missed. Bleed the Bellwether again. Something answers. That night the well sang. Garrett woke with blood in his ears. A low, bone-deep hum pulsed through the walls. Every loose nail in the house rattled. The woman convulsed in her sleep, biting through her stitches. Blood poured from her mouth, and her eyes rolled white. And from the floorboards came a voice. Childlike. Gentle. You can't silence a god with thread. Then laughter. Not cruel. Worse. Playful. He ran to the cellar. The well was glowing red from within, like it had caught fire far beneath the surface. And rising from it, not smoke, not heat, but words, whispers, paragraphs, screamed prayers, nursery rhymes, all spoken at once, all clawing at his brain. He tried to cover his ears, but that just made it easier for the voices to slide into his head. Garrett ran outside and saw them again. Red ones. But more this time. Not at the tree line. On the porch. On the roof. One of them was wearing his jacket. Another had the same eyes as the boy under the church. And all of them stared with the same hollow mouths. But none of them moved. Not until Garrett whispered, "What are you?" The nearest red one blinked. And every single mouth whispered back, "You." Plan of fire. Garrett packed salt, iron nails, and a canister of diesel. He brought the woman with him. They returned to the well at dawn. The voices had died down, but the glow still pulsed beneath the earth. She handed him the journal again. A final passage. If the Bellwether sings, feed it fire. Mouths can't echo ash. It must burn with silence in the air. No screams. No prayers. Just death. Say nothing. Give nothing. Then light the root. He nodded. Doused the well. Lit the match. The fire didn't burn. It screamed. Not audibly. Not in air. In the mind. Garrett doubled over as 1,000 voices poured out of the pit, each one begging, pleading, cursing, in his voice. "Please, Garrett, not like this. You said you'd help us. You're no different. You're already part of us. Let us sing." The woman clutched her ears. Blood ran from her nose. And from the flames came a boy. Or what used to be one. Naked. Bloody. Covered in teeth and mouth stitched all across his chest. He looked up. And smiled. Garrett struck the match anyway. And dropped it. The well ignited. Not with flame, but with light. And as it consumed the boy, the voices screamed in fury. Then went silent. After the fire, Garrett woke in the grass, hours later. The woman was gone. The well was sealed. Melted shut. Like the earth had scarred itself over. No more voices. No more red ones. Bellweather Hollow was quiet. But something strange had changed. As Garrett walked back toward the town center, he passed a mirror shard in the dirt. His reflection blinked. He didn't. And faintly in the wind he heard, "You fed me fire. But fire speaks too. See you soon." Part 3, When Hills Remember. 31 hours later. Garrett Cole didn't know what day it was. When he climbed back into his truck, he found his phone dead, his watch frozen, and the radio repeating the same weather report on loop. Fog advisory in effect for all of Penobscot County. Please remain indoors. If you hear knocking, do not open the door. It was 80 degrees and clear. He left Bellweather Hollow without looking in the rearview once. But he didn't go far. Because the land wasn't letting him. The paved road that brought him into town was gone. Replaced with a dirt trail he didn't recognize, even after 30 minutes of driving. GPS spun uselessly. Road signs blurred when he squinted. And every time he passed a dead tree, he realized something impossible. He'd passed it before. Same branch break. Same claw marks in the bark. Same scraps of blue fabric fluttering like skin. Garrett stopped the truck, got out, and found his own footprints leading into the woods. Still fresh. The county map that doesn't exist. He made it to the next town by nightfall, a place called Dorshamsbury. Population 340. Looked like 40. The kind of place where folklore and daily life were the same thing. The gas station clerk looked up when Garrett walked in, pale and drawn. "You just come from the Hollow?" Garrett hesitated. "Yeah." The clerk whistled. "You walked out?" Garrett frowned. "Drove." "No, you didn't," the clerk said. "Nothing's been drivable out of Bellwether since '82. When Garrett pushed for answers, the clerk told him to visit someone named Orla. She used to be the librarian. Before the town burned. Before what burned? You'll see. Orla the keeper. Orla lived in a house built from stacked books and windows with no curtains. She didn't ask Garrett's name. Just said, "You heard it, didn't you?" The hum. He nodded. "You're not infected then." "Not all the way." She made tea with river moss and bourbon and told him the history they don't print. "There's no Bellwether on any current maps," she said. "It's a ghost circuit now. Shows up when it's hungry. Every town has a Bellwether. A psychic hinge. A child usually. Always sensitive. Always gifted. When they bleed, the land remembers. And if the land remembers too much, it wakes. Garrett asked her what the red ones were. Her eyes didn't blink. Echoes of what you gave it. Reflections. But not yours. Not just yours. Everyone the Hollow ever took. Everyone it will take. She showed him a map from 1891. It showed Bellweather Hollow, yes. But it showed more. Other places. Null sites, she called them. Towns that blinked off the grid and came back wrong. One of them, Kell's Spine, was pulsing red ink across the paper. That one just turned active, Orla muttered. She handed him a file folder marked Project Tungfield. Confidential, U.S. Forestry Division. Inside, photos. Topographic scans. Satellite images. Garrett's blood turned cold. There were mounts in the hills. Not metaphor. Not madness. Actual, physical mounts. Dozens. Some big enough to swallow livestock. Some sewn shut with roots. One got out. At first, Garrett thought it was paranoia. That thing from the well. The boy shaped one with mouths across its skin. He burned it. Right. He wasn't so sure anymore. Because while sleeping in his motel room, he woke to find words scratched into the bathroom mirror. I'm learning your shape. He covered the mirror with a towel. The next morning, he found a child's drawing slid under his door. Crayons on yellow paper. It showed a stick figure labeled, Me, and another stick figure with 1,000 mouths. Labeled, New Me. He asked Orla what it meant. She didn't answer. Instead, she lit a match, burned the map, and said, It got out, Garrett. You didn't seal it. You birthed it. Callow's Spine. Orla made him take a trail that wasn't on any GPS. Old warding path, she said. Used to hold the roots back. Callow's Spine looked like a logging town. Until you noticed the smoke was moving wrong, up into the earth, not out. Until you noticed no birds flew overhead. Until you stepped off the road and found bones planted like crop stakes, arranged in spirals. Garrett entered through the post office. Found letters scattered everywhere. All addressed to the one beneath. All of them sealed with red wax. He opened one. Inside was a tongue. Still wet. Still warm. It began to whisper. A voice you can't forget. Garrett started hearing it again. The Bellwether's voice. Not like before, deep, booming, ritualistic. Now it was personal. Garrett. Garrett. I'm inside the folds. Inside your words. He bit his tongue until he tasted blood. Didn't stop it. He saw people. Or what looked like people. Blank-faced, speaking in reverse. Wearing coats inside out and shoes made of bone. One leaned in close to him at the diner and whispered, She's proud of you. She needed a name. You gave her yours. He left Callow's Spine that night, but not before finding a tree with his own voice carved into the bark. When he leaned close, it whispered, I'm almost done shaping her. The red rings. The next null site lit up 3 days later. Another vanished town. Another spiral of children's shoes. Another whisper in his mouth when he woke up. But the worst part, Garrett passed a mirror in a gas station. And this time, the reflection didn't smile. It opened its mouth, and it was full of tongues. Part 4. Those who were not buried. 3 graves, no names. There's a rule in backwoods burial. If the land doesn't take the body, don't make it. Garrett knew this rule. He just didn't understand it until he stood at the edge of 3 open graves, shovels stuck like iron crosses in the dirt. The holes were too clean, soil too neat, no rot smell, no coffin debris. And carved into each tombstone was one word: waiting. The hollow had shifted in his absence. It wasn't a town anymore. It was a mouth. Garrett crossed the tree line in full daylight, and still needed a flashlight by noon. There were no shadows, just light pooling in the wrong directions, like someone spilled oil across time and asked it to behave. Every structure had changed. The church was now a spire of bone, its bell a ribcage. The diner had no door, just mouths whispering through boarded slats. Come back. Come in. Come bleed. The well was still sealed. But now the earth beneath it pulsed, a steady thump like a second heart. The dead that speak. Garrett brought iron, rope, matches, and a cassette recorder, gifted to him by Orla, etched with a warning. If you record their voices, they can't take yours. He turned it on, and the tape immediately hissed. Not blank. Already playing. His voice. Don't come back. Please don't. I'm not me anymore. He dropped it. Smashed it with his boot. It kept playing. He found the woman from the farmhouse again. Only she wasn't hiding anymore. She was standing at the tree line, hands clasped, her mouth fully open but stitched from the inside out. Like something had pushed outward and sealed itself shut behind her teeth. She didn't move, didn't breathe. She was humming, and in the humming, he heard every voice the hollow had ever taken. Whispers in soil. Garrett entered the church bone spire. Inside, pews of spines, altars of vertebrae, stained glass made of flayed skin, and something sat at the pulpit. Not a person, a shape. Wrapped in rope, suspended above the floor, head covered in burlap soaked with ink. It rocked back and forth, and its fingers were roots, dipped in tongues. It spoke without opening its mouth. We were buried in words, but not all were good. You left us here. Now we speak again. He saw the blade, the Bellwether, but not as he had been. Now he wore a crown made of teeth. His eyes were gone, replaced with candle wicks. Wax poured from his sockets, and inside his chest, Garrett saw all their faces, reflections of the red ones, trapped behind ribs like mirrors in cages. And the Bellwether said, I learned pain from you. Now I'll teach it back. The false road. Garrett tried to leave. He reached the truck. The key turned. The engine purred. He drove for 20 minutes before he realized every sign said, Now entering Bellweather Hollow. He looked at the GPS. The roads were forming a spiral. Dead animals lined the shoulders, foxes, cats, deer, with their mouths torn open and filled with dirt. And when he hit the brakes, the truck stopped outside the church again. Only now, his own body was hanging from the altar cross. Still twitching, still grinning. He burned the church. But as the fire spread, the smoke formed letters. they read. You can't burn something that grows underground. The one that dug too deep. At nightfall, Garrett went to the well. It had cracked. Not just once. All the way down. It had become a chasm, a black vertical mouth leading deep into the hollow's gut. And down there, something stirred. He tied the rope to the rib of a dead pine and descended. 30 feet. 50. 75. Until the air smelled like iron and salted breath. He reached the bottom and found faces in the walls. Alive. Mouths wide. Some crying. Some laughing. One of them was his. It whispered, "Welcome home, Garrett. You've been bleeding a long time. You were always here." Garrett blacked out. When he came to, he was standing in a house. His house. A mirror in front of him. But the face wasn't his. It was the woman. Still stitched. She whispered, "You're not Garrett anymore." He tried to scream, but he had no tongue. The mirror shattered, and through it he saw a town, dozens of them, blinking off maps one by one. Bellwether was just the beginning. The hollow wasn't a place. It was a pattern. The letter left behind. In the burned remains of Orla's home, someone found a note months later. Written in dried blood. Signed only with AG. It read, "They're not ghosts. They're repetitions. Every voice that goes unanswered gets louder. If you hear them, don't speak. If they knock, don't open. If you see your face where it shouldn't be, run. Some wounds echo forever. Some mouths never close. And the Bellwether? The Bellwether still bleeds." Part 5. We Speak No Grave. A map drawn in skin. The hollow no longer lived in Bellwether. It had grown teeth and walked away. It followed highways now. It whispered through radio static. It left spiral-shaped bruises on the necks of missing persons and carved backward names into school desks in towns where no children played anymore. And Garrett? Garrett didn't know if he was alive. He'd woken in a room with no ceiling, stars above, a mirror in the dirt, and his own mouth sewn shut. Only his mouth didn't hurt. Because it wasn't his. Not anymore. In the voice of others. He remembered a story Orla told him once. When a bellwether lamb cries, the flock follows. But if the lamb learns to echo every cry in the field, even the wolves don't know who to chase. He now understood. He hadn't sealed the hollow. He hadn't escaped it. He had become its shepherd. The new bellwether. The voice that bleeds others into believing it's their own. Evidence left behind. Elsewhere, a sheriff's deputy from Gorshamsbury found a trail cam footage reel on an old logging path. It showed a man limping through the woods. Face blank. Mouth slack. At first, the man called out for help. Then, his voice changed. He began calling himself, repeating his name, over and over. Garrett Cole! Garrett Cole! Garrett Cole! Until, on the third repetition, a second voice joined in. Not echoing. Repeating. Mocking. And then, the camera feed went red. For 38 minutes. The spiral buries all. Garrett wandered across 3 more null sites in less than a month. Each time, he found tongue trees, trunks carved full of mouths. Each time, a church built of bone. Each time, mirrors that didn't reflect but remembered. And each time, the reflection of a little boy stared back. His eyes were made of wax. His teeth were tiny bells. And every time Garrett opened his mouth to scream, the boy would say, "No graves for us. We are all still speaking." A place with no word for silence. Garrett was found one day. Or maybe something wearing his skin. It knocked on a farmhouse door in North New Hampshire, 3 towns over from Bellweather Hollow. Said his name. Said he needed help. They let him in. Inside, the youngest daughter, 4 years old, handed him a drawing. Stick figure. Spiral behind its head. A second figure made of red mouths. Labeled, "Me tomorrow." The farmhouse was empty the next day. Not destroyed. Not burned. Just empty. Like it had never held a voice. Only the TV played in the living room. And the weather report repeated. Fog advisory in effect. If you hear a knock, don't open the door. If you hear your name, don't answer. If your mouth begins to speak without you, run. His final word. Garrett left behind a cassette tape. Buried in a salt-lined tin box beneath the bones of a dead pine. Label. Not me. Not you. The tape begins with silence. Then a voice. If you're hearing this, I'm already gone. Or I'm already you. I was a man once. Garrett Cole. I hunted things that wore skin wrong. Now something wears me. I speak and it follows. It speaks and people listen. That's the curse. That's the wound. We were meant to bury the hollow, but it buried itself in us. So here's your only rule now. Say nothing. Write nothing. Whisper nothing. And for God's sake. The tape ends in a burst of static in a child's voice. Please help me kill it. A note to the living. Across the county surrounding Bellwether, people speak in dreams now. Not in words. In symbols. In red spirals. They wake up with phrases written backward on their bathroom mirrors. Or find recordings they never made, playing in the dark. Where were you when I bled? Who taught your voice to lie? We are all Bellwethers now. Bellweather Hollow no longer needs a place. It has a language. It has a rhythm. It has you. And when you hear your name from a voice you've never known, don't speak. Don't scream. Some legends crawl inside your throat and learn how to use it. And they speak no grave.